Hello and welcome back to my craft room. It's time to take the next step in our colour inspiration journal adventure. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining in with me and sharing all of your works in progress in the Discord community and the Facebook group. It really makes my day to see them and see so many different takes on this thing, whether you're doing art or stitching or other textiles or a mixture of everything. As I you can do whatever you like with this project. You could there are prompts, there are suggestions, there are ideas, there are no rules. You do what makes you happy. If you've got any questions at all along the way, because it's quite hard to cover every eventuality, please do ask me either in the comments on this video or in the Facebook group or Discord community, and I'll always be happy to help where I can, as well lots of the other lovely people in there as well. Before I forget to say, I will leave my link tree in the description box. If you click on that, follow that link, and then click on the Discord button or the Facebook group button, or both. You can join both. They're all free. You can go along there and share whatever you're doing with this project. If you're someone that's making videos, I'm linking the people that are doing videos following along with this project in the description box as well. A new one has joined us this time, which is Dottie B. So that's, you'll know her as Sally in our Facebook group, but she's Dottie B, and I love what she's doing so far. She's only just sort of discovered, has only just realised it could be interpreted in Stitch. So yeah, so she's away. So I'm dying to see what she's been up to. Well, I've already had a peek. Enough waffle, let's get on with, I'm sure there'll be more waffle as we go along. It wouldn't be me otherwise, would it? We started a new chapter last week, basically started a new chapter of our little adventure. For anyone that doesn't know, it was inspired by this book by Julia Caprara, but I'm very much putting my own spin on it and drawing from other craft books and online sources and things to come up with some ideas for us to play with, really, and basically find inspiration in the environment around us, not really just colour, but also looking at texture and shapes and all kinds of things to inspire us. The assignment for last week was to put together a mood board inspired by something that sparks your imagination. I will put the colour inspiration journal playlist in the description box as well, so you can have a look and catch up right from the beginning if you're just seeing this for the first time. It's got lots of new people joining at the moment, and so yeah, if you've jumped in the middle and you don't know what I'm talking about, follow along with the playlist. Excuse me being a bit sniffy today. I gave a few ideas for the kind of things you could pick on. It could be a poem, a song lyric, a piece of prose. It could be a favourite painting, a photograph that you've taken. It could be a found object. It could be something you love. Just something that sparks your imagination and evokes images for you. So many different ways, so many different ideas. It took me the longest time just trying to decide what I was going to do, and once I decided, I was away. So what I decided on out of all of the possibilities was my granny's teacup and saucer, because I just love it. It evokes such memories for me. It's very precious to me. I've got a whole dinner service that she collected, which is very precious to her as well. I also love the colours and the images on it and the design. Yeah, I just love everything about this little cup and saucer. So I decided to go with that. Let me show you how I got on. So I've got this here. We're going to be looking at a bit more colour theory today as well. Nothing too taxing, just touching on it and giving you some sources you can look at for further information if you want to. But you know, any bits of this that don't appeal to you, just gloss over them. So the idea, and I'll reveal my mood board in a minute. So whatever you've picked, whether it's an object like this or a poem, or like Jen in our Discord, she's got a collection. You don't have to make a mood board. She's got a collection of objects to inspire her project. You could put a little collection of objects together in a little tin or so, you know, whichever way you want to do it. I wanted it in my journal, and I wanted to make a mood board. Other people will find different ways of doing it. It's just some way of putting together a little collection of images and colours and shapes and textures and things that are gonna inspire you for future projects. I suppose that kind of sums it up. When I look at this, the first thing I see is the colour, because colour is a thing that always calls to me. I'm sure if you're doing this, following this project, you're probably the same. And I just love the colours in this. There's this kind of golden yellow, this sort of red violet here, the leafy green, kind of red orange there, and a blue, and then there's this, what would you call that, like a minty green or very pale teal. I don't know what you would call that colour. I love the forms. I love these scrolls. I love the floral images. I like that you've got this kind of line work, and in fact if you look closely it's little, there we go, There we go. Can you see this tiny? I love that line work. The look of those beautiful, scrolly, organic shapes, all lovely and colourful, and then that line work, and it's actually dotted lines in behind it. I just love that. I think it's a beautiful design and really colourful. And it goes back to like the 20s, I think. So there's the colours, there's the shapes. Love the overall shape of the cup. Just the cup itself, that could spark ideas for me. There's so many things I could do around that for future projects. So I'm already thinking, ooh, you could make a vessel, you could make something really practical, like turn it into a pincushion, or yeah, there's a lot of different ways I could go with this. I love that when you look inside the cup, the pattern's inside as well. So what I did was, I primarily thought about the colours, but I also thought about what other ideas this evokes for me. So it very much floral gardens and tea parties and days out with my granny, to be fair, but you know. Okay, so I'm thinking gardens, tea parties, china, these beautiful floral images, and the scroll work, as well as the colour palette that's here. So this is my mood board. So when I started on my mood board, I didn't just think about the colours. Obviously, you can see the colours are there, but I was thinking more about the ideas, the feelings, the mood that cup has evoked for me. So yes, I've kind of got the colours in there. This looks really leery when you first look. I need to get my face out of the way now. When you first look at it, I suppose it looks a little bit leery. I took 2 pages out of later in the book and just taped them on, by the way. And by taking a few pages out now and again, it's giving more space in the coal for the thickness that I'm sort of accumulating here. There aren't many colours here that you can't actually find in this teacup. This is obviously, that pink isn't quite the right pink. You know, it's more, this pink is right. Sorry, this pink. And let me take these out because I don't need them for a minute. That's more of the right kind of pink. But, you know, bunting was something that, you know, when I think of gardens and tea parties, I think of bunting. This is actually a painting I took out of a magazine. It's a Claude Monet painting called Walk Through the Irises, I think it's called. And you can see there's that orange yellow is in there, the pink, the right kind of a red violet. It's like it's a tint of red violet. It's got some white with it. That sort of jadey green, pale tea, or whatever you want to call it, is in the butterfly in here, and the bits of it in here. I'm going to take these. I've made these little kind of, you know, this is a pocket and there's a little tuck spot here to put these extra bits in, which I'll come back to in a minute. I was kind of hoping I'd come across some images of macarons or the kind of tea party related things, but I just didn't come across any. I liked the gnome. So I've got birds, I've got teapots, I love this idea of someone's made a bird feeder, a nester, out of an old teapot, a saucer. What a lovely idea. I've clipped some little bits of trims there that are in the colour scheme. Really, it was, some of them I just tore pieces out because they happened to be the right colours. Some of them it was things like birds, the teapot, the garden gnome, the flowers, obviously, the leaves. It was because it fitted with the garden idea. So altogether, I've ended up with, sparked by this cup, I've ended up with this lovely reference now that I can work from. So I'm going to put the cup to one side for a minute. Let me show you these that I put in as well. These are National Trust postcards I've been hoarding for ages, and I've put these in because of the designs. The colours aren't necessarily quite right, although they're not far off, but it's looking at these scrolly designs and beautiful floral images. Does it tell you what this is? For Morris and Company, designed by J.H. Durl, 1895. I was going to say it's got a William Morris look about it. This is Morris and Co. Lanhydrock. I've been down there a lot of times. Yes, these are J.H. Durl. Durl, I think that's how you say it. Late 19th century. So it isn't actually that much older. Love that. I'm not sure that quite fits in with this, but it sort of does. It sort of does. A lot of this is about the designs. I put that partly because, yes, it's gardening, it's got a bird, but also it's got the gold, because the other thing about, I forgot to mention with the cup, is it's got this lovely gold rim, which has worn off a little bit now on this. Got this gold edging and rim here. I've also got spots of gold. I've got a little bit of a gold trim there. I've got 3 gold sequins, a little bit of a metallic, you can't quite see it, metallic trim there as well. A little bit of gold in these. And these were just bits I tore out in the magazine but didn't actually manage to fit into the into the collage. Oh, and that was some... I was hammering flowers. I was hammering them onto fabric, and I did this piece onto paper. Isn't that amazing how that came out? So it was a real pansy, put face down and then hammered. Incredible how that came out, I thought. Don't know what I'll do with it, but it's just, you know, at least it's got a little home. There's some napkins there with more flowers and the little birds. Yeah, and you can see all of the colours that are in my cup are here, and some, but you know, they're all there. All of those colours are there. Now I don't have to be stuck on the cup. Somebody was saying about they were just worried about picking one thing and then being kind of stuck with it for the month, but you're not. This is what I was meaning. The cup has sparked this mood board. The mood board has captured kind of the feelings and everything that I get when I think about the cup, but then I can now take all of the elements from here to work on. So I'm going to jot some down. So if I put this down here, and I'll jot some things down here. So I've got, oops, my writing's appalling. So I've got butterflies, birds, obviously flowers, leaves. I've got a lot of wood grain. I've ended up with a lot of wood in this. So there's wood and wood and wood. So I've got wood grain. I love the scrolls. I put scroll design so I know what I mean. I love the kind of stylized floral images. Stylized floral. I'm going to put there's a willow pattern teapot. I could use that. I've often thought the willow pattern story would make an amazing scroll, a little stitched scroll, wouldn't it? Oh, now I want to do that. Oh, I'm going to write scroll there. One day I'll be looking at this again in a few months' time and think, oh yeah, I forgot I was going to do that. I like just having a little bit of like here. Oh, that was all off screen. This little bit of, that was just a bit of collage paper there. I like the idea of incorporating a little bit of handwriting in as well, or other text. So those are all things that I've taken just from, apart from the colours, these are all things that I've taken just from this side. So if I now open up the other side, oh, and I forgot the bunting as well. Bunting, triangles. I put the lace here and the doily to remind me that of lace tablecloths. So if I put old lace, tablecloths and napkins, old, you know, china, basically old china at all. Cup, vessel. There's a little old china doll head peeping out there. Gnome, lights, lanterns, trees, a glass in here as well. Glass, china and glass. Kind of little ditzy prints. Can you see what I mean? There's just so much. There is so much going on. So I'm going to leave these notes here. And the other thing I want to do, I'll probably do just a little sketch, just a little maybe watercolour sketch or something of my cup just here, just to remind me where this came from. Then I might, on the same page, I might do it on a separate piece of paper and stick it in, because it's going to be a bit awkward doing it on here now. But I might just copy freehand a little bit of this design, just slightly enlarged on here, with perhaps the colours added in, and just emulating some of this beautiful line work in this design. There we go. So I might just sort of transpose a little bit of that, transpose, is that the right word, of that design onto here as well. And then on this side, let me put this away now. So obviously you can adapt what I'm saying here is, whoops, just what I'm going to do. You can adapt it to whatever, you know, whichever way you're working, you're going to have to adapt it to fit what you want to do. On this side, what I want to do is pull out my colour palette. So to pull out my colour palette, I'm going to go back to this. For me, that's what's going to work for me. And just, I want to mix all these colours with paint, see if I can find them in my coloured pencils and Inktense. And I also want to find these colours in thread. I will also be wanting to find them in fabrics later on as well, but at the moment I'm just going to look at my pencils, paints, thread. So whatever you're working in, whichever way you're doing it. So I will be putting my colour palette down on here. basically. Talking about colour palettes, I wanted to give a little bit more guidance about that. So let me just take you back to the book that inspired all of this project for a minute. Here was Julia's example mood board. You can see all sorts of, possibly that was the original image that sparked the whole thing. I don't know, does she say? But it could very well be. You could have looked at that image and then pulled all of these colours from it. There's a little piece of stitched work there, which I think there is a bigger picture of somewhere in this book. Interesting, she's kept some of this netting. I kept some of this in the last chapter. You'll have seen I had some of this in green for my limes, which I'm still working on the stitched piece that goes with that. So she's got all sorts of bits torn from magazines, bits of stitching, bits of fibres, different kinds of paper and bits of fabric, little scribbled notes here, all kinds of things, sweetie papers, all kinds of things that fit. So it's not just it's a mood board to me. She's calling it a storyboard. To me, this is more of a mood board than a storyboard, but it's just a question of semantics, isn't it? And you can see she's brought in lots of different textures and things as well as the colours there, which I haven't done so much with mine. I have a little bit. Oh, and the thing I forgot to show is I pulled these out because and those will be attached to my page. So they're partly colour and it's partly to do with the ditzy prints and the lace tablecloths and napkins to remind me about that. But I might use these in a stitched piece. My pretty bookmarks I've been getting, they're all in my craft books downstairs. So we've already kind of talked about the colour wheel a little bit. We've talked about, there are the three primary colours, your red, yellow and blue. Then there are secondary colours. Yellow and blue mixed makes green, yellow and red makes orange, blue and red makes purple. This is an interesting exercise, and I remember doing this years ago. I'd forgotten about it. But if you stare at one primary colour for long enough, for just a few seconds, just stare at it, don't blink, just stare at it just for a few seconds, and then look straight at it's amazing, look straight at plain white patch, and the complementary colour to that will come up. And they explain why that happens here. It's something to do with the cells at the back of your eye. The nerve endings at the back of your eye become exhausted and substitute their opposites to rest the eye. Isn't that incredible? The brain is a wonderful thing. So, the human body is a wonderful thing. So that's an interesting little aside. So we've already kind of touched on that a bit, and I can't go into it in huge detail, but what I'm going to do in a minute is show you a really good online resource that I think is really easy to dip in and out of and follow, and you can go into it in as much depth as you would like to and as you've got time for. That's primary and secondary. We also looked at tints and tones. Well, I called it tints, shades and tones. For me, it's tints when you mix with white, which is what Julia's saying. She's saying tones are when the colours are mixed with black or grey. For me, it's shades if they're mixed with black, and it's tones if they're mixed with grey. But again, semantics, I guess. And then there's tertiary colour. So tertiary colour is when you mix two of those secondary colours together, or three of the primary colours, and you mix them in varying proportions to get different shades. And here's I love this. This is just like packing paper and stuff all made into a tube and knotted together to create this amazing effect. Look at that. And depending on what you've chosen for your inspiration for your mood board, you might find you've got a lot of tertiary colours in there, and you need some neutrals to set everything else off sometimes, don't you? You may have seen me before using my colour wheel. It's cheap as chips, these little colour wheels. I think they're brilliant. You can just get them from Amazon. I think I've got a pack of 2 and gave one away. They're really handy. They're talking about warm colours and cool colours and what happens when you add white. So if you've got a blue green and you add white, you'll get that. If you add black, you'll get that. If you add red, interesting. Really useful little thing. I tend to use this side more, and it's really handy for working out colour schemes, and it tells you all about different kinds of colour schemes. So complementary, split complementary, tetrad, triad. They talk about harmonious. Yeah, harmonious colour schemes are either monochromatic, where you've got tints, shades and tones of the same colour basically, or analogous, where the colours are next to each other on the wheel. So you might have these colours or these colours. That's a really safe colour scheme. I nearly always find I need to add a pop of something complementary. And we went through a lot of this in the earlier sessions. So if you haven't done that, I was just go and follow the playlist along. And also we've talked about adding black and white as well to give a bit of contrast. I find this really, really useful, and I think it's well worth getting hold of one. It's not, it's going to last for ages, and they really are pretty cheap to buy. But if you don't want to, there's some really good resources online. Let me show you. So if you just type in printable colour wheel, in fact I'd probably put free printable colour wheel into Google, there are all sorts of different options that come up that you can print off, cut them out, and use them however you need to. There's some really fun ideas. I thought this one was lovely, especially if you're working with kids, where she does all sorts of different colour wheels that you can print off, and then you can go out and about and do a bit of a scavenger hunt and find the colours that match up with the printed wheel. I thought that was a brilliant idea, and you could do that within the house as well as outside, couldn't you? I think it's really fun. Or just try, mixing up the colours to match as well. Yeah, might be a really fun idea. I think especially with kids, but I'd probably do it too, to be fair. This one I think is brilliant. I'm going to leave a link to this. This isn't a printable, it's an app you can interact with, and I thought this was fantastic. I'll show you how this works in a minute, but just look at all this information, all of the colour theory explained really nice and clearly. It's not mind-boggling at all. I could sit and go through all of this. I think it's going to be too much for some people. So if you want to find out more about colour theory, I would thoroughly recommend this article. It is excellent, really well explained. All the different kinds of colour schemes, warm and cool. They've even talked about more sort of technical things there as well, which I'm not so familiar with, but absolutely brilliant resource. I will definitely link to this excellent article. As an example, I've picked up the green in my granny's teacup, and then I've asked it to choose a colour combination, and I've chosen complementary. So the complementary is that red violet that is in the flower. I think in the flower it's probably a tint of that. In other words, it's had a bit of white added to it. So say I wanted to keep that as my main colour, and they do talk later on in this article, they talk about proportions, and we've talked about that as well. So if you're going to use complementary colour scheme like this, don't use them in equal proportions like that. I would say use 80% of the main colour and just 20% of the other one. I think they talk about 70, 20, 10 or something. So yeah, they talk about using proportions anyway, but you can read this for yourself if you're interested. So let's see, I haven't tried this yet. If I pick monochromatic, or you can even export the palette as a PDF. I'm going to do that in a minute. It's just giving me a tint of the same colour actually. Let's try them all. So analogous. So this has given me 3 colours which are next to each other on the colour wheel, and I believe if I export this as PDF, it will give me those codes, those codes for the numbers. So you could use it if you're doing computer graphics, you could use it for that as well. It's not going to be me, but so triadic. So this is where you've got, I was going to show you on my wheel then, but you won't see it. Hang on, I'm going to come back to my wheel and show you on my wheel first. So on my little wheel, we've got complementary. So say I wanted to, let's compare that online resource with this. So say I want to find a complementary colour. There's my yellow green, and the opposite is going to be the red violet. So as I say, I think it's kind of this colour on my cup. It's this colour, and then it's a tint because it's been mixed with. And another excellent thing about these wheels, so this gives you the tint, there we go, tint, tone and shade. So tint with a bit of white, tone with grey, shade with black. So there's so much in these little wheels for what you pay for them. I just think they're worth their weight in gold, and they don't weigh much. That's the complementary. If I wanted to go for a split complementary, I still leave my arrow pointing at the main, what I want to be my main colour, and it could be a tint, tone or shade of that colour. And a split complementary means that you use, this would be the complementary, you use the colour to either side of it. So in this case it would be a red and a violet, or it could be a pink and because that's the red mixed with white. It could be a shade, so I could have this and that. That would be a split complementary. And then there's tetrad. So tetrad is kind of 4 corners, but in here they show you it could be rectangular or square. So I've got this corner of the tetrad. I'm going to do the square one pointing towards the yellow green. So my tetrad scheme would be the yellow green, the blue, the orange and the red violet. And now thinking about it, I've got all 4 of those in this cup. I don't think this cup is going to fit any of the kind of standard colour schemes because there's too many colours in it. I've got a yellow orange, which is hiding under here at the moment. So I've got a yellow orange. I would say I've also got a red orange. I've got the green. I've got the blue green and I've got the red violet. So there isn't a standard colour scheme that will include all of those, but I'm not going to worry about that. This is where I come back to saying it's really good to understand this theory and it's really good to understand the rules, but it's really good to know that you can break them as well and do whatever makes you happy. Okay, so now we've had a look at that wheels, let's go back to the online resource. That was analogous. This is the 3 colours that I showed you, 3 colours going around the wheel next to each other. Triadic, so that was the one with the triangle, not the split complementary. They haven't got a split complementary here. Triadic is when I didn't even show you triad, did I? No, I showed you split complementary, but not. So the split complementary looks like a triangle because you're pointing to the main colour, and then the 2 colours either side of what would be the complementary. With the triadic, it's like an equilateral triangle. So 3 evenly spaced points around the wheel. So it could just be the red, blue and yellow primary colours. But it could be also anything in between, if that makes sense. So for a triadic one, let's see what they come up with for this. I'm checking that on here now to see if that works, if that's the same on my colour wheel. For the yellow-green, my triadic scheme gives me yellow-green, blue violet and red orange, but of course it will change a bit if I slightly move this main colour around, so it might be that I haven't picked quite the right colour there to start with. That isn't a scheme I would choose to work with, I have to say. Tetradic, so that's that, square or rectangle. Ooh, interesting. That's getting a bit more like what I've got on my cup. True tetradic. Again, that's gone for the golden yellow instead of... My cup is mixing up a few different colour schemes. And then we've got shades of the colour. See how this can take all of the work out of it for you. Tints of the colour. So the shades was adding black. The tints is adding white. Cold colours. Warm colours. As I say, if you want to use something like this to come up with your colour scheme and then print it off, you can export the palette as a PDF. Quite like that one. I'm going to see what happens if I go export as PDF. Let's see what happens. So yeah, look, it gives you all the codes that you need if you're going to use it in computer graphics and things. And you can just print that off and then pick all your threads and things to match. I'm going to cancel it because I don't really want to save it. If you just wanted to get some tints so you can match up your threads or fabric or paints or whatever, again, you can just print that off. This is a brilliant resource just for this, let alone all this other excellent information here. So if, say, I wanted to start with that more bluey green colour, let's see if I can find it. Get my cup in front of me. You just grab hold of the thing and move it around till you find the colour you want. I think it's it's a tint of that, I think. Let's say it is. I like that one. That's one of my favourite colour combinations, actually. Can you see what I mean? You can either, it depends on how you want to do it. You could use an online resource like that and pull out your colour palette, print it off and work away from there. I'm going to carry on working on my mood board here just a little bit. Next step for me now is I want to do a little sketch of my cup here and some of the pattern like I was explaining. I want to pull out my colour palette here, so I'm going to mix up my paints to match it. I'm going to dig out some Inktense pencils and coloured pencils that I can put in my pencil case to take downstairs with me, because I tend to work on these things in the evening. And then I also want to find some threads to match. As I said, I'm not going to worry about fabrics just yet. I'm going to just be working in with my art supplies and my threads at the moment. But as I say, you must do whatever you want to do. So I think I will stop and dig those out now. Another thing I wanted to do, the reason I say Inktense, is that I've been watching Create and Craft with Christine, and she's been using her Inktense blocks. I've got blocks and pencils and sticks, I think. But she's been using them to dye plain cotton crochet thread like this to make her own variegated threads, and I love the idea of making my own variegated thread to match my colour palette. So I'm going to stop recording a minute and pull my supplies together, get my palette sorted out now, and then give you a little optional exercise assignment for this week if you want to do it. You don't have to, just go your own sweet way. It's absolutely fine. Whatever you end up doing, please do keep sharing with me though, because I honestly, it makes my day when I see it. I've been playing, I've mixed up a palette with my gouache paints. I love working with gouache, partly because even if it dries up a bit, because it's water based, you can reactivate it, so I can keep this palette and use it again in a minute. So I have done my best to mix up the colours I see on my cup. You can see the pink there, struggled a little bit with the red orange, like in that flower there, and I don't think I did a great job with the yellow. It should be more mustardy there, but it's fine. And there's the leafy green that I love. This is a lot brighter than that kind of very pale teal that you see there, but that's fine. And this is the blue. So that's it in my gouache. And then I started playing around with kind of mixing 3 of the colours, so like an analogous 3 colours, the yellow, green and green, kind of mixing them without blending them, because one of the things I was going to suggest we have a go at as this thing where I think I mentioned it last time. So here's an example from Monet where they put colours next to each other with these. I just love the brush strokes here. They don't blend the colours together, they put them next to each other like that, so that they kind of mingle in your brain. Those colours kind of mix and bounce off each other, and I just love it. I just think it's so much more kind of, it gives it a movement and life and vibrancy that you don't get if you kind of blended it all together. I don't know, I just always loved that technique, and it's something I've never actually properly tried because it's a bit brave for me, but I started trying there, and I'm going to give this more of a go. And another example is a work I love is Van Gogh, and I love this Starry Night one. You can see there the colours aren't blended together, but they do blend together in your mind, and it's just so much more sort of lively and interesting than if you just blended all those same colours. And you can see how well that translates itself to stitch work or whatever other textiles you might be doing. I'm thinking maybe felting with stitching over the top. So that's kind of what I started doing there. So if oh, my water's filthy now. So if I take another, it doesn't have to be analogous colours, but I just thought it'd be easier to try it with. If I take these 3, so I've got that kind of this and this sort of. Let's just see what happens if I, just another interesting way of playing with the colours. And to do this effectively, I think it needs to be kind of the same tonal value. So like, don't use a really, like if I used a really pale, say I use that pale pink and I use this dark red, they're not going to kind of blend in the same way. I just think that's just really interesting to play with, so I'm going to have a bit more of a play with that. More of that later. A little mini collection of my Inktense pencils. This one's called Fuchsia, and if you've never used it, it doesn't matter if I go over I'm going to go over this writing, so I'm going to run out of space otherwise. I can still read the writing anyway. So if you've never seen Inktense pencils, you won't know how amazing they are. So it looks pretty nothing like that, although you can lay it down much more heavily and get a deeper colour, but the magic happens with them when you do this. Look at that. Inktense in the block form is what Create and Craft with Christine has been using to make her own variegated threads. So I'm going to use these to make my own variegated threads for my project as well. So I mean that doesn't absolutely match, but it's not too bad, and you know, it's the spirit of it. And without getting too complicated and start mixing them and everything, you can blend one over the top of another and then blend them together, but for this exercise I just wanted to keep it simple. This one's Mid Vermilion. I got sent these little silicone ashtrays when I bought a whole load of trolls for my troll kits a while back. The guy put in these silicone ashtrays as a freebie. Of course I don't smoke, so it's no good to me, but actually they're perfect for this. And look, you've got a little scrapey patch for your brush, or a little rest in between. Marvellous. And that will do for my orange. That's my orange here, but I can deepen it up as well. They're quite fun to go, if you go wet in wet with these, they go on differently. That's quite interesting. If you look at that now, you can see let's get in that little orange flower. The mustard was the best yellow that I could find for this. Beach green. I've got to mention with these, obviously I've mixed white to give me a tint of some of the colours, and I could mix black in and get darker, but for this I want it all light and bright, so I'm not sure I'm going to need that. This one to kind of simulate that sort of jade colour, and on the actual cup it's mixed with white and possibly It's possibly mixed with a little bit of grey actually to give a tone rather than a shade. Again, for this part of this exercise, I wanted light and bright and easy. I've used a deep indigo for this, my indigo flower. So that's probably a better, apart from this. Then I got coloured pencils. I'm liking the Inktense colour palette the best actually. So these will all be going in my pencil case for this leg of my Colour Inspiration Journal adventure, along with a white Uniball Signo board, a gold Uniball Signo board, because you know that little hint of gold. So if I just try this against a bit of that blue, that would be lovely for giving me that little look at that. It's catching the light nicely in the camera there. It'll give me that little hint of gold. There's another look at my mood board. That's my colour palette that I've taken from it. All my scribbly notes of different elements within this mood board that I can pick up and just choose to work with or not. And then I've also picked out some threads. I've got these to remember the lacy doilies and napkins and tablecloths. And I've picked out some threads. So a mixture of stranded cottons. There's some other, I don't even know what this is, but I've had it for ages. I think it came out some vintage pack or something by the look of it. This Cotton Abroda DMC one. This tapestry wool. I've got, this was a Steph Francis one. So was this. And they're all kind of colours that are in my palette. Now I couldn't find exact colours, but again what I'm thinking I can do is mix the colours on the page or on my square of fabric or whatever I decide to work on. Oh, it's a bit of gold as well. Hate working with metallic threads, but it would be lovely if I could make myself do it, because it is an element in my mood board and an important part of my little cup, you know. So I've got those, and I'm also going to have a go at making some variegated threads like Christine did. So one more thing I want to show you, and then I know I've gone on far too long, so I'm just now going to take you back to this book that we're semi-following along with, picking bits out of. This is kind of a stitched version of what I was just very quickly doing with my paintbrush, where you've got different analogous colours next to each other on the colour wheel, kind of blended together by stitching them close to each other. This is the same. So you've got that kind of more orangey colour, a pinky colour and a red and a little bit of purple. Those would all be alongside each other on the colour wheel, so they make a lovely harmonious blend. And they because you've stitched them all next to each other, they all kind of blend together in your mind's eye. What Julia is showing here is ways of using different art supplies and then making different kinds of marks on the paper to mix those colours together. So in this case they're all scribbled. She's scribbled in something wax-based, like a wax-based crayon, and then she's done a wash over the top and the wax has acted as a resist. Here it's just straight lines in the different colours, all made one over the, next to each other and one over the top of each other, so they all kind of blend together in that way. And again, imagine that as stitching. Love this one. This is one that I'm in the midst of trying a version of myself. It's called Meadow something. Is it Meadow Turf? So you've got all different shades of greens and yellows and things in there, even going into almost blue. Different thicknesses and types of thread. It's all done with, I think it's a Y stitch, maybe. Just love that. Another example. And here you go. And this is all... So these aren't analogous colours at all. These are all lots of different colours. So those are a few examples of... And actually that one right on the front there, you can see there, it's Y stitches by the look of it and straight stitches. So you can see how all of those colours have been laid over the top of each other and are all blended together with all these different straight stitches. Just love that. So quick summary: find something that sparks your imagination, put a mood board together inspired by it, pull your colour palette from it, look at all the other elements that have come out in your mood board that you might like to work with. The shapes and forms and different motifs that come up in your mood board. Find different supplies to match the colour palette that you've pulled out. So whether it's art supplies or threads or fabrics, whatever you want to work in, put your little colour palette together and then try mixing those colours in the way I was talking about, like with the Impressionist artists, like with the work that Julia shows in that book. I would say limit yourself to kind of mark or one kind of stitch, because stitching is just another kind of mark making. So if you're going to do it in stitch, maybe use all kinds of different weights of threads and things, use all the colours in your palette, but just use one kind of stitch. Just use a Y stitch, an arrow stitch, a straight stitch, but do it all different sizes, or do them all the same size. Do them, just experiment. Just have a good old play and see what you can come up with. If you're going to use art supplies, maybe divide your journal page into a grid, or divide a couple of journal pages into a grid, and experiment with mixing different colours from your colour palette together, but not blending them. Just use strokes, just use straight lines, or cross hatching, or scribbling, or dotting with all of the different colours, and see what you like. For me, I will probably do some more experimenting with art supplies in my journal, and then I will translate that into stitch. I'm going to do some experimenting on my drop cloth that I told you about last week. I haven't got it up here with me, but I'll bring it for the next video when I come back to show you how I'm getting on. And for me, the drop cloth is like a step between ideas I'll sketch in this journal and a finished textile piece of some kind. So I'm hoping I'm making sense there, but like I always say, do ask questions. It's really hard for me to cover everything. I don't want to give any hard and fast rules. I just want to give lots of ideas, and I just love that everybody's coming up with all these different kind of responses to it. I will be back in a few days to show you how I got on making my variegated threads a la Christine. The next couple of pages that I've done in my art journal based on this mood board, and I'll show you what I've done on my drop cloth, what I've experimented with on my drop cloth, and then I'll talk about the next step in this journey. Please do remember to share your colour inspiration journal projects. I so love to see them. It makes my day. I'll be back in a few days. Meanwhile, I'll see you in the Discord community and the Facebook group. Thanks very much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon. Bye. What a lot of waffle.